So number one, sanctions by nature are a means of war. Sanctions are a means of war. In fact, sanctions are war. But the war is being fought on the civilians. We tell all African presidents who are in support of Western sanctions that your day is coming. What you see is starting to happen right now on the African continent. The young people are becoming restless. The young people are becoming impatient. You as African leaders, you have lied for too long. You've lied for too long.
Effort to promote love and unity within Africa can take various forms, including cultural exchange, education program, economic cooperation, diplomatic initiative, and grassroots. Hear the speech from our father Joshua Maponga, speaking to the leaders and Africans, those who are supporting the sanction against West African countries. Here I'm talking about the Saharan region. Let us dive in this speech.
And having said that, sanctions have never been to the advantage of the local people, because when you cut down the resources on the local people, it is a foreign agenda, because the commercial and business interests of the West are being challenged. And France was very clear that Niger must expect a very strong repercussion for the decisions that she has made. And that decisions means that there may be interventions that are coming to restore the American interests, to restore the French interests. Now, I read something also this morning that was interesting, that after America blew up the Nord Stream gas pipe that was supplying Europe, their option and alternative was to build another gas pipeline from Niger into Europe, inclusive the uranium that is being taken off. And Niger, it looks like it's putting a stop to that. So the Nord Stream is no longer working. The Niger pipeline is no longer working. And the uranium which they had opted to get from Niger is no longer working. Now, because Americans and British and Europe are pumping money into ECOWAS, and they're pumping money indirectly because they're in control of the leaders of those countries. And they're not interested in democracy. Because if they were interested in democracy, they would have been discussing the Biafra story in Nigeria, for example. But it looks like most of the Francophone leaders that have been there for the longest of time have been mainly stooges and puppets of the French government. Because you cannot in the world at this day and age use sanctions so that people suffer. And when then people suffer, they will vote for you as a leader to assume power. And when they vote for you to assume power, then you are going to enforce not the agenda of the African, but the agenda of the people that have given you money. Because when you close off means of official business dealings, you close down means of production, you put people under sanction. Question, how do you want them to survive? How do you want the government to survive? How do you want the people to survive? So people are going to look for extra methods and ways of survival. And some of those ways of survival might not be necessarily kosher to world business standards. Some of those ways of survival might not be friendly to Western interests. So we want to find out one question. When you are putting someone on sanctions, whose interests are you serving? Whose businesses are you protecting? Yes, African leaders, they are what they are. European leaders, they are where they are.
Understanding Africa's interest, including managing its abundant natural resources responsibly and ensuring equitable benefits sharing. By adopting transparent and accountable resources governance practices, African nations can harness their resources to drive inclusive growth and development.
African countries, it is illegal to do business with a fellow African government. Once you have a relationship with the government, it is corrupt. So we need to start correcting this narrative of it is illegal for an African person to do business with African leaders. And point number two that I want to raise, and Nigeria, yes, Nigeria needs to start thinking very seriously, because the president of Nigeria is actually the head of ECOWAS. And if ECOWAS is putting Niger into sanctions, and I think that he's being very irresponsible, Very irresponsible. And I think the president of Nigeria needs to start thinking seriously about the Fulanis and the Biafra in that space, and make sure that he preaches, oh, we have our democracy institutions are being challenged. And when you are sitting in that office, you have not even followed one rule of those democratic processes. Is it okay that when other countries are being put on sanctions, when our brothers are being put on sanctions, that our neighboring African countries, Cameroon, and who have extra food, we can now begin also to stand together as African countries to protect the interest of our own common people? And if we don't do it, we cannot always be waiting for the Western world to be sending relief to our African countries. We tell all African presidents who are in support of Western sanctions that your day is coming. What you see is starting to happen right now on the African continent. The young people are becoming restless. The young people are becoming impatient. You as African leaders, you have lied for too long. You've lied for too long, and you continue to oil the hands of the colonial system. That time of lying is over. And if you would listen to me very carefully, honorable presidents, stop oiling the hands of Western and European business people who come to you in the night with briefcases of money, who call you into their countries, come to your hotels with briefcases of money and corrupt. Here, we'll help you set up a business here. Put your wife and child as proxy. Take some of the money, put it here, put it here. We'll help you to grow and etc. And destroying your own people to supply and oil your own interest. I think for the longest of time, this kind of behavior has been allowed to continue. So I'm here to alert all the young people that when you have a leader, be it a young leader, be it a senior leader, no matter how much you love them, as we cannot in Africa in this day and age tolerate any leader. We cannot tolerate any leader who continues to be a puppet of Western powers to abuse our own local people. That time is up. Purely African for Africa is for Africans. And it is time now that as African countries, particularly you as African children, we need to start talking together, working together, supporting each other, putting our voices together to build the Africa that we want. We need to start mobilizing ourselves into this common good interest. I promise you, and I will say it again, if the war breaks out in Niger, I am going personally to Niger to join that army there. I would rather die as a soldier standing than live as a poor servant and slave on the colonial system. It is time as Africans we begin to think together, work together, act together, support each other, particularly on issues of national interest, because when national interests are tampered with, the sovereignty of countries is tampered with, and there's no way Africa can community of people as long as our politics is being managed by foreign external people who even have the confidence of getting on media spaces and say, we are coming there because we want to protect our interests, our businesses. We want to protect our interests. But how did your interests end up in our countries? How did we become so important in your business, yet when we are not important to ourselves? How did our resources become so important to you that they will even call for your army to come here to our country to protect us from ourselves? That's quite interesting. Huh? You leave America to come to Niger to fight the people of Niger because you want to protect interests. Whose interests? American interests. Now, in which ship, in which aeroplane did your interests fly from Washington to Niger, that you must now come here to Niger to protect your interests? Now we know there's no interest here. This is business. This is oil. This is business. This is uranium. This is business. And I think it's time now. It's time. We need to start talking politics and take off our gloves off and just say it as it is. Maybe it's time we stop dealing with poodles. We stop dealing with dogs that are running around the yards as if they own the yard. Meanwhile, they're just protecting the yard. Hoof, 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 hoof every night. You see something passing, hoof. So hoof, Niger is now going to coup, hoof, the coup, hoof, and you're making noise. No, we no longer want to deal with the dogs. We want the owners of the house to come forward. So who are these people who have interests in our spaces, to whom we must now face them? So let's stop the hoofing business. Bit the dog until the owner comes out. So now we know who is the owner in terms of Niger business. America has made it clear our interests are there. France has made it clear our interests are there. So the enemy of Niger is not Niger. Enemies of Niger are these people who have interests in our economy. So we will no longer tolerate African presidents who hoof around the house, whereas the owners are sleeping on their splash Egyptian cotton sheets and peep once in a while through the window. So who is there? Oh, it's Mnangagwa. More sanctions. Who is there? Oh, it is Toure. Put on sanctions. No. Who is there? Who is passing by? No, get rid of him. Go kill him. Who is there? It is Gaddafi. It's too noisy. Come on, Obama, get rid of him. Who is there? No, that is Lumumba. No, get him out of the window. Who is there? No. We want no more hoofing business. We want no more hoofing business. We want to deal with the owners of the estate who are giving us trouble. And so African leaders, let's start working together. Let's think together. Let's share our resources, our food security for each other. And when you hear that another African country is in trouble, don't laugh about it. You are next. Until we meet again next time, tell your president to stop hoofing. Tell your president to stop hoofing. Tell your opposition parties to stop hoofing. Sanctions are never to the benefit of Africans, but to maintain the colonial interests of the capitalist industrialist. Stay away from trouble.
Recognizing and advancing Africa's interest is essential for the continent's advancement and the well-being of its people by prioritizing self-determination, effective governance, regional integration, international engagement, sustainable development, resources management, and peace and security. African nations can work together toward a brighter future for all Africans.